hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 13 of our F1 23 Myteam career save. Now, if you didn't watch the last episode in Singapore, go back and watch that one, because it was an interesting Grand Prix where we had an all-British podium. Lando Norris winning the race from George Russell and Lewis Hamilton in P3. Standings-wise, it means that Max Verstappen is just 20 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton with 3 races to go. Checo Perez is now out of the fight either. George Russell just a little bit further back. We are down in P12, level on points with Oscar Piastri and chasing Esteban Ocon. We're actually above Pierre Gasly, which is a little bit nice as well. Constructor standings wise, Red Bull are 60 points in front of Mercedes, so Mercedes and Red Bull fighting it out both in the drivers and constructor standings. We've just had a little mini season break, which allows me to bring you up to date on the R&D, and interestingly, we have overtaken Williams now, as well as Alfa Romeo, so we should firmly be a midfield team going into the last few races of this season. We are this weekend in Texas. I do enjoy this Grand Prix, and there is talk of us getting some new investment from America while we're over here. We're not just racing, we're doing some negotiating as well, but that'll all become clear towards the end of the season. So I'm going to get through qualifying and we'll see how we do at the United States Grand Prix.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, Norris, Lewis, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Ocon, Albon, Magnussen, Joe, Tsunoda, Sargent, De Vries and Ollie Caldwell. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Welcome to the grid for the sprint race. Now, Ollie Caldwell did very well in practice, believe it or not. But in qualifying, couldn't put the laps together. He's starting back at the grid. That is not reflective of this car's pace this weekend. It feels very good. I feel very good indeed. We're up in P7. We've nearly got a nosebleed sat here on the grid for this sprint race. If we can not drop any positions for tomorrow's feature race, I'll be happy with that. We're on the medium tyre. That's the optimal tyre for this sprint race, I believe. So let's just see. Can we possibly move forward? I doubt it, but we have out-qualified a Ferrari. I mean, our work here is done this weekend. So here we are then as the sprint race it starts. The sun is setting in Texas. What can we do from P7 on the grid? Can we keep this Ferrari behind of us, Charles Leclerc? We ride on board with us as we get away, looking round the outside on Carlos Sainz. We've got a decent start on the medium compounder tyre. Most cars are on that medium compounder tyre. We have a look round the outside on Carlos Sainz and we get better traction out of turn 1. And as we head in towards these long chicanes, we do manage to get into P6. We've got Carlos Sainz behind us, then Charles Leclerc. In front of us, we can see Norris. Verstappen is leading. Perez in P2. Hamilton and Russell, the two Mercs, in P3 and 4. We down in P6. 7 for Sainz, 8 for Leclerc, 9 for Lance Stroll, and Fernando Alonso in P10. But we can see straight away Carlos Sainz trying to attack us here. We just about managed to hold him off. And as the sun's setting, it's a gorgeous looking track this. You know, when the sun's setting in Texas, it's fantastic. But we can see Carlos Sainz, as we ride on board from his point of view, having a look at us side by side. He's got the better run on us down into this tight left-hander. And as we go around, we can see Carlos Sainz does manage to get up into P6. And we have to settle in behind one Ferrari in P7. But as we come towards the end of lap 1, it's Verstappen from Perez on lap 1. Coming on to lap 3, just as we're coming onto the DRS straight, we can see Charles Leclerc behind us. We're struggling to keep the gap to Carlos Sainz. I believe we are going to get DRS just about, but we can see Charles Leclerc as we ride on board. We've both got DRS, but we are no match for that Ferrari in a straight line, and Charles Leclerc up to P7, us down to P8. We can see Stroll and Alonso battling in behind us. We've got the gap of 1.5 seconds to Lance Stroll at this moment in time. Verstappen is still leading, and he's broken the DRS on Checo Perez in P2. The Mercedes still 3 and 4. Lando Norris in P5, holding on to the front runners. Then comes Sainz, Leclerc, and then we're now sat in P8. I think if we can finish P8 here, that wouldn't be a bad day's work at all. It's a gap to Stroll now, which we are more interested in. Lap 3. And as we come on to lap 5, you can see we are still in P8, but the gap to Leclerc is 1.3 seconds. But as we've said, the one we're looking at is this gap to Lance Stroll. We feel we're driving well this weekend. It's something that we're really enjoying driving the car around here. I do like this circuit, as I said in the intro, so it's working well for us. But gap to Stroll at the moment is still 1.4 seconds. We're dropping a bit back from Charles Leclerc, but that's not the major thing at this moment. Like I said, beat the two Aston Martins. We'll be very happy with that. We'll have a little check-in on Ollie Caldwell, because as has been so much the case this season, he hasn't got the pace, and he's currently sat at the back in P22. The performance of Ollie Caldwell in this Manor Racing car is not reflective of the pace we have got this weekend. Lap 5, still Verstappen lead. Join us back on lap 7. We are just about managing the gap to Alonso. It's just under a second now for Fernando, but look at this. Charles Leclerc on the final lap of this sprint race will get DRS on his teammate. Will he be able to overtake? Sainz goes defensive, but Charles Leclerc manages to get the job done before he gets to the braking zone. Charles Leclerc up into P6. We can see Fernando Alonso closing on us, but not closing by enough. The tyres are starting to wear and don't feel as optimal as they did at the start of this sprint race. The tyre wear can be a bit of a pain round here, but at the moment we are just doing enough as we come round this final sector. We're staying in P8. Gap is now nearly 3 seconds to the two Ferrari boys, but we are keeping Alonso at bay. And if we ride on board from our point of view, we've only got a couple more corners to negotiate as we are comfortable around, just making sure we make no silly errors as we come round the final corner. Alonso is quite close behind us now as we get a view of that, but we will cross the line in P8. That's not a bad day's work for us at all today. Ollie Caldwell down at the back in P21 and Verstappen winning from Perez. Not too much change at the front, but we'll take that P8. So there we have it then, Max Verstappen winning as we saw from Checo Perez. Russell and Hamilton, the two Mercedes following behind in P3 and 4. Norris P5, Leclerc P6, Sainz P7, both Ferraris getting past us, probably not a surprise. We just about managed to hold off Fernando Alonso for P8 and score a point. So we'll be starting 8th for tomorrow. Let's get to the grid for Sunday's race.
Well, you don't need me to remind you that Formula One is now so beloved in the United States that we race here 3 times a year. But let's give respect to COTA, or the Circuit of the Americas, to give it its full name. This place laid the foundations for this moment and still remains the host of the US Grand Prix. We have 10 turns to the left and 10 turns to the right here at the fantastic Circuit of the Americas. Overtaking opportunities into turn 1 and turn 12 in this anti-clockwise track. It's 3.6 miles long and we should see average lap speeds of around 126 miles per hour. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday and he'll start from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Hamilton, Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, Lewis, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Bottas, Hulkenberg, Joe, Ocon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Albon, Sargent, Ollie Caldwell, and Nick de Vries. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
So guys, starting from P8, let's have a little look at the strategies now. Soft medium is what the computer's saying. I'm not loving that. Those mediums were dying off after 8 laps. It were getting very difficult towards the end. So we're going to start on the medium. 9 laps on those, try and stretch them as far as we can, and then go on to the hard compounder tyre. In real life, it can be very difficult around here. We're going to take a little bit of fuel out, not too much, but in real life around here, the tyre wear is very strenuous on the tyres indeed. I'm hoping that the medium hard is going to be the right way to go. So starting from P8, let's see what we can do, and let's get to 5 red lights for the American Grand Prix. Here we go then, Feature Racing Texas, and we are straight away going to ride on board with us as the 5 red lights go out and we get a decent start against the Ferrari on the soft compounder tyre. And Checo Perez has a shocking start down to P8. We're into P7. It's tight into turn 1. There's a little bit of wheel banging there as we get caught up a little bit, but we managed to just about slot in P6. We've got Carlos Sainz behind us on the soft compounder tyre. He's going to be pretty racy early doors. Lando Norris in P5. Verstappen leads the way in P1, but that was a shocking start for Checo Perez, all the way down to P9 now. He is on the hard compounder tyre, but we wouldn't have expected that at all. I would expect him to lose possibly a couple more positions early doors here. Max Verstappen, we can see on the hard tyre as well. Both Red Bulls starting on the alternate strategies, but it's a good mix. Hamilton on the soft compound tyres, as is George Russell. Leclerc on the softs as well, as we can see Carlos Sainz now attacking us down this straight. He has got the tyre advantage early doors, and he's got the car advantage as well, it must be said. We saw in the sprint race, we didn't have the pace of that Ferrari in a straight line, but we can also see Oscar Piastri having a little look as well. If we just cut back to Oscar Piastri's point of view, didn't manage to get the job done, but he will now settle in behind the Manor Racing car and the Ferrari. But we are feeling pretty comfortable at the start of this race. If we can stay in DRS, that's the idea. We're going to try and use the energy as much as we possibly can to stay in the DRS of that Ferrari. Even if Oscar Piastri gets past us, it's not the end of the world. He is on the soft compound tyre, and this will come to us a bit later as we're riding on board with the rookie Aussie driver, taking in all the track he can possibly take. And will he look to have a look at us down this start-finish straight? He does seem to have the better traction, but we do get a decent exit out of that corner. As we come on to lap 2, Hamilton is leading from Verstappen. George Russell's in P3, Leclerc P4, Norris in P5. Then comes Sainz, we're in P7, Piastri P8, Perez P9. Fernando Alonso rounds off the top 10. Ollie Caldwell, ladies and gentlemen, looks like he's had a decent start. He's on the soft compound tyre and he's in P90. Join us back on lap 5, and it's got to say, Oscar Piastri is causing us some major headaches. If you have a look in the wing mirrors down, we can see the McLaren on the inside of us before we get to the DRS straight, and Oscar Piastri makes the move. He's up into P7, but that's not the end of our worries, because we've got a Red Bull sat behind us. And as you know from watching any type of F1 this season, if you've got a Red Bull behind you, you can be in a little bit of bother, especially when that DRS is open. And Checo Perez into P8. So we've lost 2 positions in the space of a sector there. Not ideal for us at all on lap 5. But Perez is on the hard. These soft tyre runners, I should say, their tyres are going to wear a little bit quicker than ours. We can see Hamilton's pulled out a 4-second gap at the top of the grid at this moment in time. Russell is on the back of Max Verstappen as well, so Russell's keeping him honest, as is Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris. But then we are now just going to have to try and sit in behind Checo Perez, sitting behind the Red Bull. We had the measure of Fernando Alonso on the sprint race on Saturday. I'm hoping we can have the measure of him again here today. And also, it must be said, the medium compounder tyre is looking pretty comfortable at this moment. We're feeling good on the medium compound, and hopefully we're trying to just tag onto the back of the Red Bull. We know we said we were going medium hard, but with the way this tyre's feeling at this moment in time, I am inclined to run these a little bit longer and possibly go on the softs towards the end. So on lap 6, Hamilton leads, we're sat in P9. And on lap 7, Perez and Piastri are getting a bit impatient, and Checo Perez goes down the inside. There's a little bit of tyre banging going off there. Oscar Piastri possibly lucky not to get any damage from that, but we now feel that us and Perez, especially on the hard compounder tyre, these softs are starting to die off, and we feel we've got the pace to make a move. You can see there Piastri really backing us up here, and we are trying to really push him along, because we can see this gaggle of cars in front of us for sort of the podium looking positions. Is that out of reach for us today? I think it possibly is, but we are showing very, very good pace so far this weekend, as we now look to get a decent run into this corner and we get heavy straight away on the throttle using ERS, we can see, and we are going to get DRS as well. Let's have a little look at the speed advantage here. We get the slipstream, pull out a little bit, Piastri shifts over a little bit as well, but by the time we get to this corner, it looks like we've got the job done. Piastri's to the outside of us, we're there, and by the time we get to the next corner, we're still fighting him a little bit, but we've got the position up into P8, and now we're on the back of this little train of cars. We are following a Red Bull, ladies and gentlemen, in a Manor Racing car. On to lap 9, and we've got some cars pitting. First one is Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc's in as well. Carlos Sainz carries on for one more lap. Perez carries on, as do we on the medium compounder tyre as well. But let's have a little look here as we're flicking between them all. Verstappen's in, but Verstappen's got held a little bit there, just about gets out. Verstappen will rejoin. There's a few cars pit, like I said. George Russell is now leading the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton has pit as well onto the hard compounder tyre. So interesting. Verstappen on the hards, then has gone onto a set of medium compound tyres for the next 10 laps. We are still following Checo Perez. He's dragging us along with the DRS. His tyres are still working. We are now going to commit to going onto the softs towards the end of this Grand Prix. So as it's on to lap 10, we are changing strategies because we think it may be beneficial to get on the softs towards the end. Lighter car, obviously, with the lack of fueling as opposed to the start of the Grand Prix. But lap 10, feeling comfy. And coming towards the end of lap 10, we can see Russell's in, Sainz is in, and just because we had to, we have now taken the lead of the Grand Prix. We are leading a race. Yes, we've got to make us pit stops, but don't spoil the moment because we are leading a Grand Prix on lap 11, and I would expect that we're possibly going to come in this next lap, but just savour this moment because for the first time, I think, during this series, we are leading a Grand Prix, and that's a fantastic camera angle, by the way. That is possibly one of the best replay angles I've seen from the helicopter cam on here so far, so that's fantastic, and what a sight this is. I think I'm going to make a YouTube short of this. It's that good. Loving this. It's just a shame that the sun isn't setting as we are following us driving around this circuit in the lead of the Grand Prix. The gap is 5.6 seconds to Hamilton. Yes, the tyres aren't feeling particularly great now, but we'll be pitting very, very shortly. Lap 11. And on lap 13, we've had a little moment, and we are now going to come on for the soft compound tyres. We've got a few laps to do on these. What, about 8 laps to do on these, so that's going to be okay for us as we see the Manor Racing guys get to action here onto the soft compounder tyre. It's not a bad stop for us. Let's have a little look. Checo Perez going into turn 1. We are going to get jumped by a couple of cars here, it would look. We've got Fernando Alonso's jumped us, stopping out that little bit longer. It has meant we've lost track position, but we are now onto a fresh set of soft compound tyres, and once we get these up to temperature, we're also going to go for the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as well. So lap 13, we've got some overtaking to do. And as we come on to lap 15, it's time to start doing some overtaking. We're right up the back of Fernando Alonso. We're going to go wide around the outside. We can't quite get that done, and Fernando Alonso parks it rather well, to be fair, but we feel we have got pace to burn on these soft compound tyres at this moment in time. We have just got the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as well. Yes, Manor Racing have set a fastest lap of a Grand Prix weekend. I'm getting all sorts of giddy in the cockpit here, but the job is to be done. We've got to get Alonso, we've got to get Piastri. Could we possibly get Carlos Sainz? Maybe. I think probably P7's about our maximum today. Perez has done well, he's now in P5. Hamilton's leading from George Russell, but let's have a look. As you can see, we're so close to the back of that Aston Martin. We get the power down, we've got the better traction, and we pull out to the left-hand side of Fernando Alonso. It's a drag race all the way down this straight against the Aston Martin. We are side by side as we go to the cockpit cam, and let's have a look. We are later on the braking. We've got the confidence in these tyres. We get the move and just about done. Fernando Alonso sits in behind us. We're up to P9, and Oscar Piastri, my friend, we are coming for you. Lap 15. Lap 16, we are closing onto the back of Oscar Piastri once again, and this has been one of our favourite places to overtake all afternoon. Again, we get a good traction, good acceleration off that corner, using the ERS as well, and we are past Oscar Piastri, and now we're looking at Carlos Sainz, who hasn't got the DRS. It looks like it's going to be 3 wide here as we cut to the television camera. We don't get too much space. We have to back out of it a little bit, and Carlos Sainz actually helps Oscar Piastri. We are still side by side with Carlos Sainz, and as you can see now, we've got the inside line into this next corner. We get the job done. but we've got to pass Oscar Piastri once again. But on the start-finish straight next time round, I would expect us to have a chance. While we're just waiting for that to happen, we've got Hamilton still leading from George Russell. It's a Mercedes 1-2, Lando Norris in P3, Verstappen though keeping him honest in P4. Then comes Perez, Leclerc, Piastri, and this is where we're going to get very interested, because straight away we are on the back of Oscar Piastri. He hasn't got DRS, we have. These tyres are starting to wear a little bit now, these soft compound tyres, but we still are feeling particularly quick, and we can't make the move into turn 1, but hopefully it's just a matter of when, not if, we can get past Oscar Piastri. Coming on to lap 18, we are still battling with the odds, and it's got to be said, in this first season of this series, we've had some belting battles against Oscar Piastri. We tried to go for the switchback down the inside. Oscar Piastri giving us a bit of a squeeze, and it's a really, really good battle. We get a couple of marbles on his tyres and we decide to yield. We don't want to be going side by side through here. It's not worth risking it. As you can see, we're starting to slide a little bit in the turbulent air of that McLaren, but we are very conscious that we can get past the Aussie driver. Hamilton still leading by 3 seconds, but as we come onto this next DRS straight, can we pull the move, which we've pulled a couple of times, into the next corner after this DRS straight? Again, we get a decent exit, but Piastri does as well. This time we are looking, we've got the ERS burning, but Piastri looks like he's got just enough. We aren't gaining as much as we were early goes, and now it's side by side once again into this corner. Are we going to be able to make the move here? Piastri's a little bit later on the brakes. We take the closer line, we get the marbles again, and this time Piastri holds us off. We're still fighting with Oscar Piastri for P7. What a battle this has been so far as we're on lap 8. As we're coming towards the last lap of the Grand Prix, Hamilton looks like he's got this sewn up. He's going to win here in Texas, I would imagine. 3 seconds is the gap to Russell. Then comes Norris, who's fighting Verstappen. Perez in P5, Leclerc, Piastri, and here we are for the final lap of this Grand Prix in Texas. Can we make a move on Oscar Piastri? Carlos Sainz is a little bit further back, so it's all about us and the Aussie driver, who we just love battling against on this game so far. And it must be said, he might be a driver that we look to bring in to whichever team we are next season. Will we still be Manor Racing? Will we have American investment? Will somebody in Great Britain take us over? There's a lot of opportunities going into next season for this Manor Racing team, but Oscar Piastri now, it looks like he's got the better tyres. The tyre offset, as you can see, we're a little bit wider. We have a little bit of a slide on the exit, and now instead of attacking Oscar Piastri, we may be under threat from Carlos Sainz. Let's have a little look at Carlos Sainz's point of view. He's gaining, but not by a terrible amount. We're still looking at the back of Piastri. We've got a lot of overspeed. We look to see if we could make a dive. We couldn't at that moment in time. We have a big slide on the exit. That might allow Carlos Sainz in. We are now struggling on these tyres, and at this moment in time, I think we would take P8 if you offered it to me. Hamilton is coming around the final few corners. He's going to win the Grand Prix. George Russell's going to come home in P2. Verstappen P3. Russell is going to get P4. But as we see now, we are taking wider lines. We give it absolutely everything. A little bit of a slide there as we're coming around, pushing on the ERS, possibly in a place that we shouldn't be. Desperation maybe, but coming across the line to take P8 is a fantastic achievement for us. It's more points for the Sunday, and we will take that at Manor Racing. Let's get to the podium.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
So there we have it then, Lewis Hamilton winning once again. It's been a fantastic few races for Lewis Hamilton. George Russell in P2 there as well. So Lewis Hamilton is closing the gap on Max Verstappen. It's Hamilton versus Verstappen Mark II here in this alternate F1 universe. Let's have a look at the full classification, because we're very happy with our performance this weekend. So there we have it then, Lewis Hamilton winning the Grand Prix, as we saw. George Russell P2, Verstappen P3, Perez P4. Should we have stayed with Perez and gone onto the hard compounder tyre? That is something we'll reflect on. Lando Norris P5, Leclerc P6. We finished in P7. That's a great points haul for us. 6 points this weekend. Piastri 8th, 9th, Carlos Sainz, and Fernando Alonso makes up the points paying positions. At the back, Ollie Caldwell is there in P21. We are looking forward to next season to get a teammate. Let me know down in the comments, who should we be picking? And who knows, will a new major investor have a say on that as well? If we have a look at the standings, Max Verstappen is still leading the Drivers' Championship, but only by 13 points from Lewis Hamilton. Checo Perez not that far back either. We're in P12. We are now level level on points with Esteban Ocon. Oscar Piastri, we had a fantastic battle with him. I really do enjoy battling with Oscar Piastri on this game. Constructor standings, Red Bull on 473, but the gap is only 46 points to Mercedes in P2. In terms of our little battle, we're in P7 still, but we're not that far behind Alpine. Obviously, my team on F1 Manager 23. If you're not watching that series, go and have a look at that. That's a shameless plug, isn't it? But apart from that, ladies and gents, we'll move on to the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later. Ta-ra!